my name is Kate and welcome to another video on this channel. Usually I'm talking about books that I've already read or books that I want to read. If you saw my last video about my reading goals, I literally just finished filming that video like 45 seconds ago. But today I'm going to try and do something a little different. Last summer I did like an unhaul slash reading vlog thing where I like read the first chapter of all the books on my shelf and decided what I want to keep and not keep. And I kind of really like that style of reading a cute little time lapse and then updating you on what I have going on and if I like it or not, if I'm keeping it. I kind of had a little thrill of that, and it's also like the main content that I watch on YouTube is watching people read and give live updates, and I don't know, something about that really tickles the brain. Tickled it so bad I had to sneeze. So I'm gonna try and do one of those this year, and this ties in to one of my reading goals of both reading outside of my comfort zone and trying to read some popular books, because it is soon to be upon us the season of love, as in Valentine's Day, and I thought it would be kind of fun to read some romance books around this time. So I have picked out a couple, and I've thought really long and hard about this. I've been thinking over what books I want to read for this for like 5 weeks or something, and I'm gonna get them from the library, I'm gonna read them, I'm going to determine if I like them or not, what it is I do and don't like about it, so that I can better try and work towards a goal of finding the kinds of romance books and romance authors that I like, so that I can, you know, read a nice thing from time to time instead of my violent fantasy and my unflinching raw memoirs and my like dense classics. I feel like I could use a little fun time every once in a while. I work hard and I read a lot of dark stuff. I feel like I should have a nice time every once in a while. So that's basically the motivation, which is why I chose certain books for this video, because I could very easily have gone to, you know, books similar to Deep Cuts, and I could have read, you know, the favorites, but that is like a more literary and a happy ending not guaranteed. I want to read books where it's happy ending guaranteed. I want to kick my feet, hee 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 hee, I want to giggle, and I want to have fun just like the other girlies I see online having fun and reading their cute little books with like pink covers and stuff, because I'm just a girl too. And I think like another sort of side goal I have in trying to read this, like these romance books, is to tackle this kind of almost internalized misogyny issue I have about like looking down on romance books and romance readers, because why is it that when women like something we think it's silly or dumb? And I fall into that trap all the time, and I've been better about it, because after all, I'm not like the other girls. I'm worse. So I feel like this is something I could potentially get into. However, I am a snob. That's going to be my number one challenge of this, is to like get over myself. I think there's going to be a line between maintaining, you know, my standards of what I like to read and being myself and not trying to read stuff just because other people are reading it and trying to, you know, be a cute girly. And then there's also going to be the side of me that's like, it's really not that serious and you need to have a light read every once in a while as a palate cleanser, and this is a great option as a palate cleanser. So I'm trying to balance these two halves of my motivations. So without further ado, let's talk about what I'm reading. So obviously I have to read an Emily Henry. Everybody loves her. The YouTubers I like swear by her, and I think like, what was it, UnCarly just said like she rereads A Funny Story every year.
I basically reread this book every damn year. I've reread it a couple times. This is like, I think, the book I've reread the most, to be quite honest. It's just such a joy.
And Lexi, aka Newly Nova, loves her books. She reads them every time they come out, etc, etc, etc. Everybody really likes them. I have been avoiding them because I have this disease of the mind where I don't interact with popular things until 5 years later, and then I read them or watch them and I'm like, guys, I'm watching Breaking Bad right now. Isn't that really great? Everyone was watching that 10 years ago. Anyway, don't get sidetracked, Caitlin. So obviously I could have already set the title. I'm going to read A Funny Story by Emily Henry. I really have a very basic grasp of what this is. This is two people, and the thing that they have in common is that their exes got together, like broke up with them and then got together. Does that make sense? Maybe I should put a little graphic. And so it's kind of their experience, their friendship, their rom-com. And that's kind of a fun concept. It does, you know, I do love like a 1930s screwball comedy, and I love like a 90s rom-com. So I do love a fun concept. I looked at several of her books, and this just seemed to be the one I wanted to start with. I just get good vibes from it, from the cover, from the concept, from what people say about it. She has like 6 books or something to choose from, and I was stuck between this and her most recent one. So if this one doesn't go well, you know, I will give her another try. So if I don't like Emily Henry in this video, never fear. I will try anything twice, and you can quote me on that. So that's my first choice, is read the popular option. Read the author that everybody's reading. The next was, what if I read again from an author that I liked previously? Because one of the very few romance books that I've actually enjoyed, or even tried to be so for real, is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This was really great. I had that little hee kicking my feet feeling, while also feeling like she was making interesting observations about the human experience and about these people's lives, because they were together for like a little bit when they were teenagers, and then a long time goes by, and then they meet again, and they're both authors, and they have been secretly kind of writing about each other, sort of Taylor Swift and Maddie Healy style, for a long time, and then they sort of collide again, and sparks fly, etc. So that was a really fun concept. I really enjoyed that book. I think she's a really good writer, so I think it would be a safe bet to try her other book. I don't know if she has more than 2, but I know her other book is A Love Song for Ricky Wilde, and I think this could be a hit because I already know that I like her writing. So then the second challenge is, will lightning strike twice, and will I enjoy these characters and this plot? And if this is the direction I want to go in terms of like romance subgenre, if I like this, I can just say, who writes like Tia Williams? I can Google those, and then I continue on that path and try to read more of those books. So I feel like that's a pretty good plan. So I've been talking about movies both in this video and my last video, and I was talking about that I do like romantic comedies in film form, and then I want to challenge myself and try to see if I like them in book form. And one of my favorite movies of all time, and what I truly believe is the best rom-com ever, is When Harry Met Sally. It is perfect film. This sweater, kind of an ode to the one that Billy Crystal wears, although it is definitely not as legendary and iconic. Everybody loves that sweater. So I thought I would give a little read to You Again by, I forget the author's name. I don't have it in front of me. But that YouTuber I mentioned earlier, Lexi aka Newly Nova, also really likes this book. And this book is a retelling, sort of like modern retelling of When Harry Met Sally. And that proven formula. I love when characters hate each other, and then they like each other, and then they hate each other again, and then they like each other. Love that, all of that. So this, I think he's a chef and she's something else, and it's basically When Harry Met Sally. The cover is obviously a reference to like standing in Central Park in autumn, so I feel like this could potentially be a win because it is based on a movie that I really truly love, and I plan on rewatching it in this video and comparing my love for that and my maybe potential love for the book or potential disdain for the book. We're gonna see. But as you can see, based on the books I've chosen to pick up for this project, this little experiment, are books that I both believe that I will like, hope that I will like. I'm really crossing my fingers because I want this to be a success. I'm not trying to read romance books to prove to myself and prove to the world that, like, see, they are vapid and silly. Like, if this video ends up being a failure and I don't like any of these, I'm gonna really truly be devastated because I do want to enter this genre with, you know, with an open mind. Okay, so I just talked for forever about the goals of this video and the books I'm reading in this video. So why don't we just hop to it and get to reading? I don't have any of the books with me at this precise moment. But in a minute, I'm gonna go to the library. I've got 2 on hold. That's Funny Story and Ricky Wilde. I'm gonna grab those, and I think I'm gonna right away start on Funny Story. So come with me to the library. I've tried to wait until the sun isn't behind me, but it's just gonna always be behind me. We've gone to the library, good secured. We've got Funny Story. I had no idea how big this book is. This is really long. And then we've got Love Song for Ricky Wilde. And then finally, I thought I would be cheeky and get the third book in the Veronica Speedwell mystery series. This is proven evidence that I can have a silly, goofy, fun time if it is written well. And so I'm going to continue in that. So that's what I've got. I'm still waiting for You Again. And I think the first book I'm going to start with is the Emily Henry, just because it feels like the standard. Like this, when you think of the romance genre, you think of her, and some people even think of this book specifically. So I'm going to maybe start this tonight before bed, and whenever relevant, I will update you. Especially because I really don't know what it's about at this particular moment. So when I get a grip, then I will let you know. Nightcap. Best friend. Book. I don't know what this feels like. It feels like I'm recording this on like a prison webcam or something with the backlit and the desk lamp, but I just want to update you really quickly before I start my day about Funny Story. Can't hold up the book because you're currently resting on the book. I read the first 5 chapters last night, and I'm actually kind of enjoying it. The premise is that Daphne, she's a children's librarian, and she is engaged to Peter. She's an only child from a single mom. She's gonna marry into this great big loving family, and it's supposed to be her happily ever after. And then after his bachelor's trip, Peter's like, okay, so we have to call off the wedding because I'm actually in love with my childhood best friend Petra, and we're gonna go to Italy for 2 weeks, and when I'm gone I want you out of the house because she's gonna move in. And that is so deeply diabolical because the house is in his name because he makes more money. Don't be financially dependent, ladies. That's crazy. And mind you, she's only in Michigan for him in the first place, and she has no friends. Luckily, she has a job, but she just doesn't have any connections. The only other person that she really, like, actually kind of knows is Petra's now ex-boyfriend, Miles, who, as luck would have it, is in sudden need of a roommate, someone to split the rent because Petra is now moving in with Peter. So that's the beginning of the story, where Daphne decides to move in with Miles because it's her only, like, financially viable option while she figures out her next step. I think she's gonna move there for like 100 days or something, and she's just counting them down when she can move out because what a miserable situation to be in. So that was like the first chapter, which I really appreciated. The efficiency of the first chapter is like, here's the premise and we're going. Not this like hemming and hawing. Like if this was a movie, I feel like that would be the first 30 minutes would be this situation. So I'm like, so maybe not the first 30, maybe the first 15. And so I just like that it's boom, here we are. So a few chapters later, we get sort of more premise where they are out, Miles and Daphne are out, they get super sad, drunk or whatever, and realize that they have been almost kind of passive-aggressively invited to the wedding, Peter and Petra's wedding, and so they decide, let's make them sweat and RSVP, because I'm sure they only did that to be like fake nice, so if they think we're coming, they're gonna panic. And they're right, because then Peter calls the next morning and is like, well, are you sure? I don't want you to be like totally alone and sad because you're totally so like alone and sad girl. And then Daphne's like, I won't be alone because I'm going with my new boyfriend, and no, I didn't register +1 because he already has his own invitation. I'm dating Miles. So now it's like kind of a fake dating kind of story where they we haven't really gotten into that. I'm still only the first 5 chapters in. We haven't really gotten into it, but I can see that it's going to become sort of a fake dating for appearances kind of thing, just to fuck with them. So that is sort of premise part 2, which is interesting. It does feel very nostalgic rom-com. As for the writing itself, I think it's pretty good. Her sentences are pretty neat and economical. There's some, humorous asides thrown in for good measure. Her dialogue's pretty good. I'm enjoying the dialogue. As for the characters, I'm not wowed so much. I guess because I'm usually reading literary fiction where it's character driven and they're really like off the bat complex and interesting and oftentimes unlikable. The female lead, Daphne, she's kind of plain. She's kind of like a nothing character to me, which either means that she's going to develop into something more interesting, or she's kind of built as almost like a self-insert or reader insert. Miles, on the other hand, is a little bit more interesting, but not in the way that makes him immediately attractive to the female reader, which I think does sort of subvert the genre, where he's not muscled and he's got a face scar and he's moody and he's this and there's that, and he's a billionaire, like that he's just like a deeply sad guy because he's just had the heartbreak of his life. He's kind of a slob and he's not like immediately very cool. I mean, for Christ's sakes, he's wearing Crocs on the cover of this book. Like, that's insane. So it'll be interesting to see how they like make me care about these two people. I'm already kind of caring about Miles just because he's kind of down to clown in terms of this whole like fake dating charade is concerned, where he's like, oh, that's so cool that you told him that. That's so funny. Let's fuck with them. And it is nice when a character just doesn't give a shit and we go right into the premise and we're not hemming and hawing of how could you say that to da 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 da. So I do feel that there is promise here. In fact, I had to cut myself off last night from continuing to read, otherwise I would have gone to bed so late. I really did want to keep reading. Her writing style isn't like really flashy, but it is really accessible and provides for a kind of almost like binge read because it's so like compulsively readable. And that's what I think so far about the first 5 chapters. So I'm at least relieved that I don't immediately hate it, and so that's pretty exciting. And I'm going to update you as I see fit. I don't want to spoil too much. I'm not going to do anything that can't be found in the first, let's say, 50 pages and on the back of the book. That's kind of a general rule. And then but I will continue to give you like my general feelings about how I'm feeling about it. These next 2 days I'm going to be in DC. We're going to the zoo today, so this is why I'm dressed, I don't know, like the 8-year-old version of myself, because I want to be nice and warm. And so I might cut in some interesting clips as I try and covertly read this book every spare second I get. So maybe I'll read some more tonight, and I'll see you then. Okay. Same room, same sweater, same book. It's a couple days later. DC was really excellent. We went to the zoo. It was a nice winter day and there was not a lot of people, not a lot of animals, but what we saw were very active. The next day, after visiting some family, we saw the African American History Museum and the National Gallery. I love that city despite all of the mess that's going on right now. I do love that city. And in the meantime, I got through another 5 chapters of Bunny Story, and I have a couple more updates. This will probably be the last time I'm updating with specifics about the plot, since we're now at a point. I'm using a little square of toilet paper as a bookmark because I misplaced mine somewhere. The things we do. Anyway, this will be my last time updating you specifically because I feel like it's going to be kind of spoilery from this point forward. So I'll keep it brief. There's the introduction of a friend for Daphne. Her name is Ashley. She also works at the library and she rocks. I do love when they introduce like a side just platonic friendship character. I feel like it really balances out the dynamic. She needs somebody to confide in eventually, and I feel like having a core platonic relationship really balances out the narrative. So I'm glad that she was introduced and that it's not just these two people for the next 300 pages. As for Miles, I'm going to immediately take back all the things I was saying about him earlier. I'm sorry about the comment about the Crocs. He works in a winery, and that's the shoe of the service industry. It's the service industry staple. Also, he's very funny, he's laid back, he's a chill dude. He's definitely more interesting than Daphne, who I'm still a little iffy on. She is rather plain Jane, but as I'm reading, I'm kind of seeing how that's on purpose, and that it might not be a weakness necessarily in Emily Henry's writing, that she's probably plain and understated because, as she's telling us, she's basically been consumed by this relationship, her former relationship, and has forgot all of her hobbies and passions and interests, and she's just generally more of a people pleaser, and that I can see that Miles's like little idiosyncrasies, and he's more gregarious, he's less insecure, that he will bring out a good side of her, and that we have potential to see actual character growth. At least I'm hoping. This sort of reminds me of the manic pixie dream girl trope that you often see in cinema, where it's like boring sad boy meets eccentric cool girl. He's intimidated by her. Why has she chosen me? She turns his life upside down, and in the end he learns some sort of philosophical message about how to live life and let go. And there are a lot of very reasonable critiques about this trope on how it's women's eccentricities are only tolerated or seemed attractive when they are directly improving a man's outlook, and then also that these female characters can be a little cartoony. I think that flipping the dynamic when it's sort of boring girl meets kind of eccentric boy, not that this particular character is that eccentric, there is, I think, a little bit more to say there. I think there's a little bit more interesting, and it's a little less played out. So that's interesting if that was her root idea of like, what if I had manic pixie dream boy almost. So I'm interested to see how that will go. If that's the case, I don't know, 50-50, because that kind of runs a little formulaic, but we're gonna see how I appreciate the formula and how where these characters go. The pages are really flying by. I mean, I read 50 pages, I don't know, in like an hour or something. It was really flying by. I'm having a nice time. I'm glad that I think at the end of this could be considered a win. There are a lot of pages. I keep showing you my toilet paper, and that's kind of feeling a little vulnerable. So currently still optimistic. So I'm now like, alright, I'm now about halfway through, maybe a little bit more like 2/3, and I'm not as positive about the book as I was in that last couple of clips, just because I feel like things have really dragged, and that I'm enjoying it less for two major reasons. One reason is that there is sexual content in here that is very plain, very vanilla. It's no big deal. It's just that I have 2,000 years of like Catholic shame coursing through my veins, so to hear like any sexual content does make me squirm and cringe. It's just not interesting to me. It's not exciting to me, and there is like a lot of, I guess, explicit yearning in this. She uses the word warm a lot, like my body warm, the warm between and the warm, and then my heart and my hand warms. Then she mentions like nipples several times in a way that I felt a little cringy, and that is on me. My other grievance is that it's a little dull, it's a little lackluster, it's lacking in tension and angst. Right now she's like exploring her small town, and it's very atmospheric in that way, and there's like kayaking and farmers markets, and that can be kind of blissful and a nice break for some or really warm. However, I find it to be a little mundane, and I don't mind a slow-paced, kind of meandering book. I'm a big lover of like Luster and Boy Parts, but those are narrated, one, in a really interesting writing style, like really beautiful writing, so that, you know, keeps my interest, but also that the main characters and the narrators are just so flawed and interesting that you're like hooked on what the hell could they possibly do next. Meanwhile, this girl, Daphne, she still manages to be really boring to me, and I can anticipate that maybe there's some development, some change that's gonna happen, but it's just not happening fast enough. I feel the book is way too long for what it is. So I'm hoping it picks up and that the payoff is worth the journey. It's just right now it's a little too soft. It's a little too easy, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm about to do something deeply scary, and that is bring the romance book into work with me. I'm usually the type that's like, I have to have the perfect book for every situation, and I don't want to be caught reading something subpar in front of people. That is a flaw, and that if part of this experiment is to challenge the internalized misogyny I have around romance novels, then I need to make myself more comfortable reading them in front of people. So I've got my book, I'm gonna read it on my break and on my lunch break, so we'll see how that happens. I brought in a Veronica Speedwell mystery last week, and somebody made a comment, it looks like a TikTok book, and that made me want to kill myself. So hopefully that doesn't happen again, or if it does, I can like learn to live with such comments. Okay, I decided to take my second break in my car. My first break went fine. Of course, no one said anything about my book. It's not that serious. I'm updating you. I'm about this way through now, and we've now hit what I was expecting to happen the whole time, which is that like third act twist, where just when you think everything's good, then everything's bad. And that is something I was worried about in this genre, was that like formulaic, you know, in the third act. It happens in every movie, and I'm sure that it's going to be nothing, but so here we are. Feeling a little disappointed, but now I have to go back to work. I'll probably finish this tonight or early tomorrow, and I can give my final verdict if the payoff is worth it. But right now I just feel annoyed at this like third act twist situation. Okay, I look a little busted. I look so busted. Look at me. I'm gonna sit a little further back so you can get a little less of my face and my hair and my everything. But it is a snow day. I finished Funny Story, and I have some things to say. So I think maybe I spoke a little too soon about like the third act twist. I think I was just as we were like dipping in that part of the plot, and yes, it was formulaic, but I think when I got the full scope of the conflict, I was a little bit more into it. And because I do appreciate some of the things that she was saying here about like sort of interesting behavioral observations about the way we're raised and the way we're socialized and how that can affect our relationships in adulthood. I think there was interesting conversations about that. I think the characters, you know, scientifically, psychologically speaking, were making sense. It's just I still didn't feel like a whole lot from them. They did feel a little built by committee, and like she's doing X because of Y, and so therefore this, it still maintained a little bit of that formula that I just felt was a little predictable, a little cookie cutter. That it was not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. Maybe not bad, just like disappointing or whatever. There is like, if you do like a rom-com and the third act twist is sometimes like a little piece of miscommunication or something really silly and stupid, and then that really annoys you because it's so formulaic, this is one of the better third act twists that I've read. So there's something to be said about that. Another point in its favor is like all the mommy stuff in here. Her relationship with her mother is sort of a slight through line through the book. She does regularly call her mother on the phone, which is something I also regularly do, and I am sort of prepped to like mommy stuff. I just, anything, my trigger word is I miss you, mommy. So if that's something that you could feel emotionally connected to, then this is something that you could like about stable connection with your mother, calling her every 5 seconds to update her, and feeling grateful to the way you were raised, etc., etc. Overall, I would say that this book was fine. I feel guilty that maybe I did a complete 360 from the beginning to the middle, that I said it had a lot of promise and then I was kind of deeply over it, and there was a sense of whiplash for me as well, that, you know, maybe this just isn't my kind of book. I feel like I'm allergic to happy endings, maybe, and I just need more angst and tension. However, I am willing to read another Emily Henry. Her most recent book, I think it's called A Great Big Beautiful Life, and that is about two writers who are competing to write the biography of some, maybe she's an actress or something like that, and that book was criticized for being less rom-com and more literary. So I could read that, and then if I feel similarly or don't really love that book, I think I'm gonna stop with Emily Henry. I just think that what she's doing is something I'm just not super enthralled by, but I am glad to have read it, because then I kind of know what people are saying when they talk about her writing or her characters or what she's trying to do, and I'm glad that I was like sort of let into this sort of internet preoccupation with her books. So it's not a total waste, I suppose, and even if it wasn't me being led into an internet preoccupation, it was decent. I think that if this is your genre, then this would be maybe the best of the genre, but I personally just wasn't feeling it. I think maybe I would have liked it more if it was providing a bit of respite, a bit of relief from my typical reading. So I think I'm gonna take a break from the rom-coms and go about my normal reading of dark, dense books, and then when I'm feeling ready to have a bit of relief, then I will move on to the next rom-com, because that is kind of the idea, is to introduce a bit more variety and a bit more, like, use them as taste cleansers. What's that word? Palette cleansers. Use them as palette cleansers. So in order to use them as a palette cleanser, I should probably go read what I would normally read and then see if that provides some relief. So I'm gonna read a couple things, and then I'll be back in like a week or so and read either Ricky Wilde or You Again and see how that makes me feel. But thanks for sticking around for this as we go on to the next one. Okay, it's been about a week since I've seen you. I've just been reading my normal choice of books, the things that I usually gravitate towards, and those books were The Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. This is a dense, modern classic about the life of one Black man from his upbringing to his adulthood, his family, their entanglements in the American South in the early to mid 20th century. It is tragic, it's pensive, it's profound. And then I also was reading Parable of the Talents, which is the sequel to Parable of the Sower. This is a dystopian, and this one really took it out of me emotionally. The extent to its violence and depiction of violence and depravity and the evilness that seems to be inevitable in human nature was really intense, and the descriptions of the evil that happens was intense, and both of these books have been weighing pretty heavy on my mind. And then I also read the first, is it here? I read the first couple chapters of Joan Didion's The Year of Magical Thinking, which is a grief memoir written after her husband passed. So this is what I'm usually gravitating towards, and it can be a lot, which is why I need a bit of reprieve. So I feel like I'm in a good position to look forward to enjoying myself, something light, a palate cleanser like I was saying before, and I was able to pick up You Again from the library. This is by Kate Goldbeck. Already I'm enjoying the punctuation in the title, because You Again has like kind of a romantic feel, but you, comma, again is like, there's something sarcastic and fun about that, so excellent use of the commas so far. This is a retelling of that When Harry Met Sally kind of dynamic and storyline, only this time I think he is a chef and she is a comedian, and it's New York City and it's on again, off again. You know, they hate each other, they like each other, they hate each other, they love each other, they hate each other again, that kind of thing, which is something I am primed to like. I think something like that I have enjoyed. I like the dynamic in Deep Cuts, for instance. I kind of like, this is a bit of a stretch, but I like the Scarlett O'Hara, Rhett Butler dynamic that goes on for several decades in that book. So I feel like this could be something I could be into. The tagline is, can they stop hating each other long enough to fall in love? And that intrigues me. So I'm hoping that this will just be a nice, fun thing that can cleanse my palate. I can have a nice time. It comes highly recommended by Lexi, aka Newly Nova, which is a channel I really like. And so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. You saw me move that mattress back there. I've got a guest staying later this evening, so throughout this morning I'm going to read this a little bit. I'm going to listen to the audiobook while getting a few things done, such as laundry and my jigsaw puzzle. And so I think that this could be a nice time. And by I think, I mean I really hope so. I have not yet read a word of this, so the writing could be terrible, I'm not sure, but we're moving onwards and upwards. I'm going to get a little taste of it and let you know. Okay, so I read the first chapter of that book. Hopefully it's not too echoey in here. I feel like it could be. We're pushing through. I read the first chapter of You Again. What's interesting so far is that it seems that the gender roles of When Harry Met Sally are reversed, and that the woman, in this case her name is Ari, is more a skeptic romantically. She doesn't really believe that monogamy exists or monogamy is a scam. She is like generally a cynic, whereas he, I think, I already forgot his name, Josh, is a bit more stuffy and predictable like Meg Ryan's character was. I think the best part of When Harry Met Sally was the like gender commentary. I mean, there's lots of good things about that movie. Again, best rom-com ever, but its commentary and interesting observations about like gender roles and the way men and women interact with each other is interesting. And I think if it had played out, this book had played out the same way When Harry Met Sally had, I think one, it would be a little boring and a little too copycat, but also it could be a little dated because gender expectations in the 80s are different than gender expectations now. So this, our main woman here, Ari, being, let's call her sexually liberated and a little bit raunchy, is a bit more modern, let's say that. So I think that that's kind of interesting. Additionally, there is no first-person perspective. It is third person all the way through, with this like omniscient third-person narrator narrating both characters' actions and feelings and backstories, is I think a better route than giving us either one first-person perspective from one of the characters or two first-person perspectives that go back and forth. I think this limits the cringe a little bit that happens in romance novels when they're told in first person. I just find that the narration is a little cringe from time to time when it is in first person. So I think that is interesting, or at least like a plus. Insofar as negatives, I am annoyed by both characters already, and not in a lovingly annoyed way that you are in When Harry Met Sally. I think that they're just off the bat a little irritating. Here's what's happening in the first chapter, is that Ari is roommates with Josh's girlfriend, and he goes up to the apartment, and this is the first time they're meeting, to cook Natalie dinner, but Natalie's late, so then he's stuck in the apartment with her roommate, and they squabble, and that's the whole interaction, and then out of spite, Ari reveals that she sometimes sleeps with his girlfriend. That is interesting, at least in that it's a little juicy, it's a little gossipy, which, you know, I like a little gossip, I like mess. And so at least there's like a good reason for them to hate each other at this point. And then the second chapter begins with 3 years later. Ooh. 3 years later. So that is interesting, that it's gonna have a big time jump after that one single interaction. So yeah, those are my thoughts so far. I'll keep giving you updates as I move along. I am struggling with this puzzle, so I'm turning on the audiobook, putting my head down, and trying to get this thing done. I am doing this lobster with a pot and a beer and the sky and the table. There's like look at all these white pieces here. We're figuring it out. Okay, I read another chapter. You can see my microwave popcorn over there. I'm having a party. I read another chapter. Again, I have some pluses, I have some minuses. Some minuses would be, again, I disdain the like overt sexual yearning, especially this early. For instance, noticing she's not wearing a bra, or like he's so tall, etc. It's just so annoying to me. It's just really irritating. It reads as like Wattpad, I'm 13 and I can't handle myself, hormonal kind of writing. That is just irritating to me. It's just not clever, it's boring, and it's cringe. However, I am enjoying like the chef aspects of it. I like kitchen drama. I'm a massive fan of Anthony Bourdain. I've read like everything he's ever written, and he talks a lot about kitchens. I like The Bear, I like kitchen culture, and so we get a little bit of that with Josh's character, which I'm appreciating. So it's 3 years later, and she and Ari is eating at Josh's restaurant that he's like, I think he's head chef, and blah 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 blah. Her friend also works there, and he like fires her sort of unjustly. And then we're jumping ahead 2 years. So I am appreciating that they have legitimate reasons to hate each other, because sometimes in these kinds of books they're like enemies, or they hate each other, and it's not that justifiable. It's just tension for the sake of tension, but they are like building actual real life tension here, which I appreciate. My other issue, it's like a reverse compliment sandwich. I have an issue, I'm complimenting, I've got another issue, and that is that she's supposed to be a comedian, but she's not funny. And I'm giving a little grace here, because it is really hard to write funny. Like, even if you are a funny person in real life, writing a funny character or writing a stand-up comedian is deeply, profoundly challenging. It's one of the hardest things you can do as a writer, and unfortunately she's not at this point in the book pulling it off. They were just her like her thoughts and the things she says they're like, I don't know, if the popular girl at school was funny, she has like little quips and little like internet catchphrases that she's, you know, peppering into conversation, but it's not like actual legitimate humor, especially not from someone who is going to be a professional humorist. So, but even like the best depictions of stand-up comedians, like the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, she's really funny off stage, but on stage there's just something slightly off about her onstage persona, and how it's like if you had divorced it from the show itself and just showed me the stand-up of Mrs. Maisel, I would think it would be pretty middling, yet within the context of the show it works. So I'm hoping that we can get somewhere where her comedy works within the context, even though I know, like, straight up it's just not going to be funny on its own. Am I making sense? Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Okay, so I read the first 100 pages of this book, and I'm having a bit of a struggle with it as to whether or not I should put it down or continue, because the point of this video and the point of this experiment is to push myself out of my comfort zone and read things, but there has to be a line somewhere as to where I'm incompatible with a piece of text, and that pushing through it is just going to be a bit self-destructive, and a little useless. Like I'm 100 pages in. I know I'm not gonna like this book. Even if I finish it, I know I'm just gonna have more things to complain about it at the end of it. So why don't I just bitch now? And serendipitously, I was watching a Books and Lala video, and she was reading Divisive Books because she has a YouTube membership system, and people subscribe to her, and then they answer like little questions about their favorite books and their least favorite books of last year. And so she's been reading their favorites and their least favorites. And in this video, she was talking about the most divisive books mentioned by her channel members, and this was one of the divisive ones. So I think it was exactly 50-50 of people who hated it and people who loved it, which was a little validating for me because, oh, okay, I get to be in a camp. I don't, I'm in the hating it camp. Other people have hated it. It is divisive, and so therefore I feel less insane for having hated it because I've only seen positive reviews of this, and Kayla ended up with a positive review of this anyway. However, the way she was speaking about it, it just made me realize that I am not compatible with this, and that I think pushing forward would be kind of ridiculous. I'm gonna do my makeup at the same time because I only have one day. I only have one day off, and I've got stuff to do, so I'm multitasking while I bitch about this book because I just absolutely have to bitch about it. So first and foremost, it is an ode to When Harry Met Sally, which does give it both a leg up in terms of people who have affection for that are gonna run over to this book because they have affection for the movie. However, I think it's working a little bit against it because it's a perfect film, and like Nora Ephron is one of the greatest screenwriters of our time, and Rob Reiner, one of the best directors of our time. Meg Ryan, Billy Crystal, they're all like really in their prime during this movie. So I feel like it's a little unfair to try and go up against them, specifically in terms of the writing, because the writing is just not good in this. It's unfortunately, it's very cringe, and I keep returning to this word cringe because that's just what it happens to be. I can't tell if like she's using slang to establish time period because there is time passing in this, and if she wants to communicate that it's like 2016, 2017, and that's why they're using words like Netflix and chill and soft boy, etc., or if they're trying to communicate that she's like young and hip, or if these are just words that are in her vernacular and this is what she's grabbing for. Either way, the dialogue in this is really profoundly unbearable to me. I feel that there's this like expectation for there to be banter in romance novels, and so when I was reading Funny Story, it was like, okay, they have to banter because it's a romance novel, so this is them bantering, and it's a decent enough banter, decent enough dialogue that I let it slide. Here it's like, it's a romance novel, so they have to banter, so here's them bantering, but it was just not at the same caliber. Not that Emily Henry is like this great artist with dialogue, she's decent enough, but this is like totally missing the mark in the way that I'm like, I don't think people talk like this. It's really annoying to me, especially as someone who is, I'm really good at writing dialogue. Not to brag, but that is a fact. It is a critique I've gotten all my life, so I know the ins and out of dialogue. I've known just like the science and the rhythm behind it, and this is just unbearable. It's driving me bananas. Furthermore, I'm not really enjoying the characters so much. Josh is fine, he's fine. I think there's some interesting things happening with his character and his psyche and his family, and that there's something there that I wish could be further excavated, and maybe it is further into the book, but I don't have the energy to read more of it. She's annoying, and apparently this is why people are hating the book, according to the Books and Lala video where she brings up negative comments, and it's usually because she's an unlikable female character. Famously, I love an unlikable female character. I love when they're promiscuous and feral and self-destructive and annoying, and that there's something just so strong-willed about them that makes them like compulsively readable or cathartic or interesting. She's just annoying. She's just annoying, and I think that is part of the problem here, in terms of her trying to be a comedian, I think that is doing a major disservice because it's so hard, like I was saying, to write comedy, and that she's trying to be funny in ways that are deeply, profoundly not funny. It's like TikTok funny and pass. I also feel like she's kind of the shadow of an unlikable female character. She's a parody of it. She has all of the features, but she lacks that like special sauce that makes her fascinating. So ultimately, I like know what's gonna happen because I've seen the film. So there's really no reason for me to keep going because like I know what's gonna happen and I know what the dynamics is gonna be. I also am like weirded out by the potential, because she's already so sexually explicit in her dialogue and in her actions and in her thoughts, that the book is going to become really sexually explicit in a way that I'm going to find ultimately cringe because Catholic shame, etc., etc. And I feel that like maybe it's well written for the people who like that kind of thing, and that's why it's gotten plenty of good reviews, but I just don't want to read that, and I'm feeling so relieved that I can at least bitch about it, and I think that's a sign that I should just give up. But I feel bad though. Like I feel bad that I'm giving up because this is what I was afraid would happen. That I would just get annoyed and cringe out and give up or hate them all and just spend this whole video bitching. I like bitching. It just doesn't feel like in the spirit of things. I have no idea if this makeup is turning out because I'm using my iPhone to look. So I'm gonna have to look in the mirror real fast to make sure. I'm filming a video after this. I'm gonna film what I read in January, which you should have already seen, I hope. Hello. The other reason I thought about continuing this is because I want to rewatch When Harry Met Sally. I had this whole idea planned for this vlog of rewatching that and comparing it, the book to the movie. I think I'm still gonna rewatch it just for the sake of, I don't know, reliving it, and I enjoy it. And also I can keep my boot on the neck of this book by watching its source material and realizing that it is absolutely fabulous and it's one of the greatest movies of all time, and that this book could never compare. So I think next I'm gonna read A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. I was saving this one for last because I already liked Tia Williams, so I'm hoping that I will really enjoy this one and I can end this video with a win. I have no idea what this book is about. I just know that I liked 7 Days in June. Oh, this is difficult. I don't know. I didn't like being that close to you. I'm gonna do this off camera. Okay, so I'm gonna film this video and then I'm gonna read the first chapter of A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. I'm gonna figure out what the hell it's about and then I'm gonna tell you about it. And hopefully that this is gonna be the win that we've all been hoping for, because I don't want to be the romance novel Grinch. I want to have fun, and isn't that the point of this? So A Love Song for Ricky Wilde is about a girl. Her name's Ricky Wilde. Hello. And she is the daughter of a Atlanta funeral home dynasty. They have like 40 locations across the nation. She's super rich. It's like classic American wealth situation with the mansions and the power dynamics between siblings, etc., parental expectations. And she doesn't want to be, a funeral home director. She wants to be a florist, which is kind of tangentially related to the business. Anyway, she likes flowers, and so she moves to Harlem, and she's obsessed with the Harlem Renaissance. I mean, who isn't? Love the Harlem Renaissance, so that's fun. And she's living in a building. She has this landlord, and she has this friend who was a, I guess a child star, sort of like Selena Gomez, but like not a billionaire, I guess, and sort of like burnt out child star. And she is just kind of like living her life. Now you think that would be the setup to the story. You think that would be the first 10 pages. Here we are, here's what's going on. That, my friends, is the first 100 pages. It is moving at a pace that is ridiculous. It is so slow. And the only thing that was keeping me going is that I think twice now we've had flashback chapters to Harlem Renaissance 1920s with this guy called I think think his name's Breeze or some other weird jazz nickname. And he's a piano player. He has migrated from one of the Carolinas to Harlem and etc. So you're seeing how, I guess, like, I don't know, the background of the area and how she's connected to this man and the Harlem Renaissance is questionable, because we are over 100 pages in and we have 2 flashback sequences that feel unrelated and 100 pages of nothing from this girl. So I went and looked at the reviews online because I'm like, am I going crazy? And people are talking about magical realism. Is she gonna fuck a ghost? Oh my god, because she saw this like dark figure in the garden and was like, oh my god, he's so hot. And I feel like it's this guy or his grandson or something. I don't know, some reincarnation. I just did not personally sign up for her to fuck a ghost or her to fuck some mortal reincarnation of a jazz prodigy. I did not sign up for that. I wish it was written on the tin. It's not written on the tin. I looked everywhere. And even when I like look at the genres that it is tagged on Storygraph, fantasy or magical realism or speculative is nowhere to be seen. Which is, you know, it's not that I hate fantasy or anything like that. It's just I want to know what I'm getting into. And if I had known it was magical realism, I don't know, I would have gone in with different expectations. Maybe I wouldn't even picked it up. I don't know. So I've decided to give up. Girl, I don't know. I don't want to DNF it. I really don't. I don't want to, once again, not finish a book. But I had a long talk with my husband, like, I don't like this book. I feel that the main character, once again, is very plain Jane. She's a nothing person. Her friend is so annoying. The dialogue is bad. The plot isn't going anywhere. I'm not seeing any interesting observations about the human experience or the black experience or anything at this point so far. So yeah, I don't want to DNF this book, especially not during Black History Month, girl. But like, it's just nothing. And if this mission is to find stuff that I like, pushing forward and wasting my time on a book that I don't like, once again, is futile. It's a moot point. Can you hear that car alarm that's going off? People need to get it together. This is crazy. Anyway, so I've decided to give up on this one once again, which you think maybe this is the end of the video, but you're looking at the time and you're like, there's still so much time left in the video. I have to have a good one. I have to end this video with something interesting. I have to have a win. So we're returning to A Treacherous Curse by Deanna Raybourn. This is the 3rd book in the Veronica Speedwell mystery series. It is a tried and true method of having a nice time and having a palate cleanser. So knowing that I'm gonna like it is hopefully gonna save this video, and I can illustrate all the reasons that I like this and what I'm looking for in other fun romance or romance adjacent texts, because I enjoy this series so much. So as I read this book, I'm going to write on a little list all of the things that I like about it and what I find to be essentials in order for me to enjoy a fun little silly book, because it can be fun and silly, but there has to be a standard of care. There has to be some quality control. So I'm gonna go into work now, and later I'm going to tell you what's going on in this, the basic gist of the series, and what this one is about. So see you later. So I've been thinking about what aspects of writing I consider to be indicators of good storytelling and which of those aspects I prioritize in my own personal reading. And after some strong consideration, I think that my favorite and most important aspect of storytelling has to be character. Without a character, I just feel that the story is lackluster. And we've been seeing that in the last 3 attempts of trying to enjoy a romance book in this video. And that's because I feel like in romance novels, more than other books, there is a tendency to make the female leads flat and bland. And you've heard me say it, they're nothing people. They're nothing knowers. And I feel like that is to create sort of almost like a reader insert so that the reader can enjoy the love interest and sort of insert themselves into the fantasy without the strong female protagonist's flaws and characteristics getting in the way of that personal fantasy. And for me, that does not make a good story. I can't enjoy a good story without a good character, and I feel that in the Veronica Speedwell mystery series, Veronica Speedwell is a great character, and she is what makes this book so enjoyable. Because is it the most serious thing in the world? No. However, I have enjoyed the books in this series so far a lot because of her and because of other things, which I'll get to later, but I want to talk about her as a character and use that to demonstrate why I haven't liked the previous books, and if I was going to like a romance book, what I would have to have. Because ultimately, what separates good romantic storytelling and just plain old self-insert pornography is rich character. And for me, Veronica Speedwell is a rich character. She would be the best Doctor Who companion, and that is a high compliment because she's clever, she's witty, she's smart, she's brave, she's adventurous. Her background is that she was born and then subsequently orphaned under scandalous and mysterious circumstances. She was raised by two distant aunts, and as a child she developed a keen interest in adventure and science, specifically lepidoptery, which is the study of butterflies. This study and passion has brought her all over the world, and by the time you meet her in her mid-20s in the first book, she already has rich lore. She's been everywhere, she's done everything, and she is a fully realized person. I love that she doesn't adhere strictly to the customs and values of Victorian England. She is sexually liberated in a way where she talks about her many affairs all over the globe, sort of matter-of-factly and without shame, so that when she does express physical attraction in these novels, it doesn't feel cringe, there's that word again, virginal or angsty. It just feels like a woman owning her sexuality in a captivating way, in a non-cringy way, in a matter-of-fact way. So that is something I really value. However, she's not this perfect person. She has flaws and weaknesses. Obviously, sometimes she's too clever for her own good. Sometimes she doesn't mind her manners. She's mouthy. She doesn't know everything, so her weaknesses and her flaws leave room for her to make mistakes, which then push the story forward. And having a complicated, flawed character makes the story more interesting, and therefore makes the resolution more rewarding because you've had to go through things to get there. On the other hand, the male lead, Stoker, that's short for Revelstoke Templeton Vane. He's got, he's the son of a Viscount. Is it a Viscount? It's one of those. I'm an American, so I don't give a fuck. And he is strong and he's brooding, and he's got scars and an eye patch from a run-in with a jaguar in Amazonia. And he's a really smart naturalist and historian. He does taxidermy. He was a doctor in the Navy. He's kind of fully formed and comes with rich lore. However, he doesn't like killing animals. He has a sweet tooth. He's has an interesting relationship with Victorian England and its customs, that he was sort of raised to adhere them, but they have actively betrayed him and made his life and have had negative impacts on his life. So these are the interesting characters that lead the story, and without them, it wouldn't be as interesting or as fulfilling or as fun, because I need good main characters. Because it isn't often that in a mystery, it's the characters that are driving it and the characters that are the central focus. Usually the mystery is the mystery. However, with these characters, I don't even have to care about what mystery it is. I just want to hang out with them.
It's a cute little heart, see? It's a heart because it's Valentine's Day.
And so that leads me to my second most important aspect of storytelling that I prioritize in order to enjoy myself with a book, and that is quality of writing. Quality of writing can look like a lot of different things across genres. It doesn't have to be Shakespeare. It doesn't have to be, one of the Brontes or anything like that for me to enjoy it. They just have to be capable of writing a sentence and having foreshadowing and to have good dialogue. I like a turn of phrase. I like an interesting metaphor or simile every once in a while. I like learning a new word. I like feeling immersed in the time. In this series, she's using Victorian language. I'm not an expert, but what feels accurately and it's very human the way they talk while also feeling like Victorian England. She writes about science and she writes about Victorian customs like I was talking about earlier, and she writes about scandal and law enforcement and sex, all in these interesting ways that I feel she's just a good writer, and it has a good clip to it. It's well paced and the dialogue is fun. I'm always comparing it to the 2005 adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, that it has that really, the clip of it, you know what I mean? And so for me, this not only is good writing in the sense of the mystery genre, however, I think it's just good writing in general. And I felt that in You Again, that the writing wasn't really there in any of the aspects, in either the description or the dialogue or the character. It just really, all of those aspects fell flat to me. In the Tia Williams 7 Days in June, it was all good. So I don't know what went wrong with A Love Song for Ricky Wilde, but the dialogue wasn't there, and the sentences weren't there, and the pacing wasn't there. So while it had a bit more promise, it just, again, fell flat for me. And for Funny Story, I described her writing as lean and efficient. However, it did lack a certain flourish that I tend to enjoy, like in something like this. This has plenty of those flourishes. So I just feel that is fine. That, Emily Henry is like my bare minimum. I need to feel that the writing is accessible. I need to feel that it is well-paced and interesting. And it's kind of hard to describe good writing but you know it when you see it. And you know what I mean. Before I talk about more aspects of writing and how I would compare them to the success of this series, I'm going to have my Valentine's Day dinner and my rewatch of When Harry Met Sally. This is I think it's the 11th, and this is my last day off for a good while. I think I work for 6 days straight, and half of those are closing shifts. So I will not have the energy or the time to do it another day. And my hold of When Harry Met Sally finally came in from the library. I just picked it up, so this is gonna be a fun little evening with heart-shaped pastas and little heart-shaped cookies. So, more on this later. When Harry Met Sally was so good last night. So good as I remembered it, as good as it always has been and will be. I loved it. And the whole time, I was like, man, I wished I loved You Again. Should I try You Again? But there's just no way, because then I'm like rewatching the footage of me bitching about it. And like, of course, it would pale in comparison because you can't recreate a masterpiece. But the whole time I was thinking about Deep Cuts by Holly Brickley. So if you like this movie, and you're looking for something fun like that, definitely be reading Deep Cuts and not You Again. So that's what I have to say. I'm continued with A Treacherous Curse, and I've thought about my third aspect of good writing and good storytelling, and that is, and this is kind of a loose term, I need shit to happen. I like when cool shit is happening. This guy was on I think he was the photographer for a dig in Egypt. What do they call those? An expedition. and then this like diadem, just kind of like a tiara, goes missing. At the same time that him and his wife leave, and then he leaves his wife, and now he's disappeared. Did he steal a diadem? Is he dead? Etc. etc. And what makes this interesting is that he is Stoker's ex-best friend, and his ex-wife left him for this new guy, and now this guy's gone. So now what are you gonna do? So then it's exciting both in the mystery aspect of it and like their personal lives, which I love. So I'm about halfway through, and so I'll let you know how it's going as I continue. The title of this indicates that there is a curse happening, and there's sort of curious happenstance surrounding the diadem, sort of a series of misfortunes, and they're trying to get down to the practicalities of like what could actually be going on. But I feel like the author is capable of enough whimsy to leave it perhaps slightly open-ended. Maybe. I'm having a great time. Okay, I had the choice between the worst audio in the world or the worst lighting in the world. It feels like I'm filming this inside of an egg that's also a prison cell. So, I finished A Treacherous Curse. It was a nice time. I enjoy reading this on my lunch break because whenever I go back on the floor, I work as a sales associate. It doesn't matter. I go back on the sales floor and I'm like, damn, I wish I was in Victorian England right now with my friends. And so it does feel like visiting friends. Of the 3 of this series I've read so far, Treacherous Curse, it's not the strongest. However, it is fun. It feels, well, maybe like a filler episode in your favorite TV show. Like, it's not essential, but you're still having a nice time. And isn't that what this is all for anyway? I thought that they would go abroad because it had like Egypt stuff going on, so I was like anticipating that they were going to go to Egypt. They didn't go to Egypt, but I know at some point that they have to leave England at some point because they're both adventurers. So like it's you know, it wouldn't be crazy to assume that they would leave England at some point and go on an expedition or an adventure or whatever. The mystery itself, it was okay. Usually they're more twisty and turny. The first one was too twisty turny. The second one, perfect amount of twisty turny. This wasn't twisty turny enough. Like the twists were all in the last little part, so it took a bit of time getting there, but that's okay. Bit Scooby-Doo-ish. And so far as the romance, which is the reason we're all here, isn't it? That's the theme of the video, if we forgot. Not much progress there, but the fun in the will they won't they is the will they won't they of it all. I'm not in a rush for them to get together. I'm okay with the slowest of slow burns. That does not bother me. So I do feel that it's progressing in a certain way. The last book, there was development and sort of their physical attraction to each other, perhaps. And then this one, there seems to be about the durability of their friendship. So I like that we're moving slowly and that it's a fun time and it feels like rooting for the Doctor and his companion or something like that. It just has that energy. So that brings us to the end of the video. So to wrap up, Funny Story was okay. It was pretty decent. I can live with the writing style. I'd be curious to try her again. I kind of get what the hype is about, sort of. It's not particularly for me, but it wasn't so egregious. Sure, I'll read another Emily Henry, why not? 2 fails. You Again was just bad, unfortunately. I will not go through all the reasons, but however, it is probably a little decisive. It's just was failing in all areas. This, I loved Tia Williams before, so how this one has failed boggles the mind, but not enough going on in this one. Dialogue bad in this one. All 3 of these, the characters, the main female characters, are nothing people. They're so boring. She's you know, in this one she was a little more self-destructive. She was crazy in a boring way. Crazy in a boring way. I don't give a fuck. So Veronica Speedwell being clearly the superior protagonist. Hello. And we're seeing everything through her eyes. I think this is supposed to be epistolary, like she's like kind of writing, this is her diaries, etc. Though it feels more like novelization than anything else. So hopefully me reading this has kind of saved the video for several reasons. One, you got to see me enjoy something, and I really wanted to enjoy something. So it ended up being this. I was able to outline exactly what I didn't like in these and exactly what I like in these, and so I can maybe come to a conclusion here, and that is maybe romance isn't for me in the sense that a romance book that's just romance, like traditional rom-com, maybe there's not enough going on for me, and I need it to be romance adventure in order for it to connect to me and hold my attention. And I know that there are series like this. I think there's one called Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, maybe, and then there's one, Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love, and the other one is Empire of Shadows. I know that those series are similar to this one. There's 10 books in this series. The 10th one is being published next month, in 2 weeks time actually. I got catching up to do. So I know that I'll have plenty of these, and I can go into those series too to see if that works for me. So maybe this is the palate cleanser and the fun happy time I'm looking for, and that these like little rom-coms just aren't for me, and that's okay. I will be dipping my toe into the genre every once in a while. If something intrigues me, if everybody's reading it and loving it, sure, I'll give it a try. But I think I learned a little bit about myself in this experiment, and that's why reading outside of your comfort zone is important, and to read intentionally and to reflect as you read and figure out what you do and don't like. And so that's what I did in this video, and I encourage everyone to do that too, I suppose, to read outside your comfort zone. And this was fun. This is the first time I've ever done a video like this, so let me know if you enjoyed it. I'm gonna try and do this with other genres, or just do vloggy stuff in general, and subscribe and like and comment, etc. Happy Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day for me is tomorrow. I got a lot of editing to do tonight, but I'm working the closing shift, so I'm gonna close, I'm gonna come home, I'm gonna take a bubble bath, and I'm going to bed. So happy Valentine's Day, and bye, and goodbye. All right, bye.